Yes. Okay, here we go. Are you guys okay? We're being recorded. So welcome everybody to our third CEO Masterclass. And today we have a very special person. I met Ivana a few years ago. Uh, Believe it or not, I met her through LinkedIn because I saw her profile a lot. She at that time she spoke a lot about um, well, she has a recruiting firm, but she also talked a lot about happiness and happiness at work and all these things. And I used to follow her. And then coincidentally, I met Bianca through a friend of mine, and then we reconnected. Ivana and I connected officially now through Bianca, and then we realized that we had a lot of friends in common and things in common. Uh, but Ivana is in the Dominican Republic. Ivana is a doctor in and also she finishes her PhD last year, and she is the CEO of her own company. She has several businesses, including business development for government contracting work, and also her her I don't want to steal her thunder, but if you I send you her profile, and one of the things that you realize is that Ivana brings so much joy into everything she does, and the passion that you have for helping people is contagious. You know, I love you for that, and we are friends. Besides what we do here at Apprentice, we're
Yeah,
friends. We get to know each other.
mutual admiration and love. I know.
That's right. That's right. And today she's going to talk to us about corporate culture and understanding this and how it's important for you to keep an eye out for what's best for you based on who you are. Right. So without further ado, Ivana, you have the floor.
Hernan, thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. I know you guys have a tight agenda, and I know you guys are invited to like master classes. And I know that you're here because you're investing time in your career and in your future. And that's, to me, that's very exciting. Even if I just think like 10, 15 years back when I was in college, I know that being here means a lot in terms of what your future can look like. And I know if you're part of Hernan's group, future will be bright, busy but bright. So I'm very excited to be here. Please just ask any questions. Feel free to interrupt, participate. Before I start, I want to know um, who who currently has a job or who has worked before. If you can like raise your hands or say I. Okay, awesome. A couple of you. Okay, who is looking forward to having a job or will have a job in like the short term? No, you. Okay, Leah. Awesome. And then the rest, are you looking to start your own business? Are you looking to first finish college? What's the plan? Marisabel, Sloan, Brisa.
Somebody raise their hands. Whoever raised their hands, go ahead.
Oh, I'm still applying for jobs at the moment, so I'm just waiting. Yeah, but I'm
Okay,
looking forward to it for sure.
okay. Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else looking forward to starting
Uh,
their first job or yeah, Brisa?
I can't wait to work, but I'm moving to Miami with an F1 visa, so it's complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with an F1, you can work on campus.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that.
Yeah. One of the examples that I'll share with you today um, happened during a campus job. So, okay, awesome. So, I have another question before we jump into today's content. So, when you think about corporate culture, what comes to mind? You can write it in the chat or just say it.
The tone of the company, like their belief
Tone,
system.
belief system. What else comes to mind? Boring, structured. That's a type of corporate culture. Okay, so let's start. So for today, as Hanan mentioned and shared, we're going to look at like what corporate culture is, different strategies for you to get a sense and feel of what a corporate culture or of what the culture in a specific company is. Because as Hernan mentioned, you can be in love with a brand or you can be very excited to work in a place and then realize that you're not a good fit or match for what the environment is or the how the company operates. Then I'm going to share with you a couple of strategies, all focused on your career advancement and development. um, so I think, like, bottom line, if I had to say what I want you guys to walk out today's session with, besides many questions answered and a little bit of inspiration, I want you guys to have tools and sort of a checklist, because I'll share the presentation of that moment when you're about to either interview or you're about to either apply to a job or decide whether or not a jumping into that like opportunity is gonna be a correct decision and how you can make that decision. So when we think culture, I like to make the like the relationship or resemblance to countries, because it's the same thing. Like corporate culture is just when we think about a nation or we think about an organization or a home, even in our own homes and our own countries, we all have different beliefs, we all have different values, we have different like routines and habits. And corporate culture is exactly the same concept, just within an organization. And even within an organization, so you can have a company where departments and subgroups have their different and their own subculture. And culture is as wide and macro as the values or ethical, like ethic conceptions that the humans within that group share, or as specific as whether, for example, bad words are accepted, or how personal are we in with our like personal lives, how much do we share at work, or is it okay for everyone to walk in at 9 a.m. and have coffee, or do people look at you if you walk out at 5:00, or what the company thinks or feels or how it feels about hybrid work, etc. So basically, corporate culture is the dynamics and the conduct that take place that are a result of what people in there believe, and like what they believe and how they communicate their beliefs. So basically, for example, when you ever like traveled to a country where you feel super welcome and you feel like you could live there because like you love how people act, and like how, whether hospital or not hospitable, or whether how close, like in Latin America, people will hug and kiss. And if you go to Nordic countries, which I've been there, and people are like, they would like literally walk on the street or like not sit on the bus next to me. So like that power distance, or like that distance between people. So that's the same thing in corporate culture. And for me, the main idea is to ask myself, what is right here and what is wrong here. So, for example, if I work at a place and we're used to have, for example, Microsoft team meetings or whatever, is it right if I'm like a few minutes late, or is it wrong? That's part of the culture. And then, is it okay to call my boss by her first name, or is there a culture of Mr., Mrs., Doctor, etc.? And then the right versus wrong is within the culture, but then the good versus bad is whether I'm a fit or no. In a culture that is fast paced and very productive and kind of toxic, like if you want to call it that, there's people that thrive there, and there's people that appreciate that, and there's people that enjoy that. So the question is not whether it's a good or a bad culture, but is it a culture that fits my needs, that fits my expectations, and where I feel comfortable, and above all, where I feel myself, my best self for self. So first, let's talk about why it's important to understand corporate culture, like for your careers and wherever you see yourselves in 20, 10, 5 years. Why is corporate culture important? So first, um, because we spend so much time of our lives like working, and even though different generations conceive work differently and relate to work differently, some generations were like they were brought up to work for a company for their whole lives or dedicate their lives to work. Not today, like nowadays, that's not the truth or reality for other generations. But job satisfaction is a big piece of our overall life satisfaction. And when Hernan was mentioning like the concept of happiness and happiness research, my research and my work has been around happiness at work. And job satisfaction is a big part of who we believe we are, how we feel we're uh how we feel we're like driving ourselves in this thing called life. And even though you have some of you have not dedicated your lives to work yet, imagine it's the same thing, like you spend so much time in school or at school in some parts of your life, then other parts is college, and then after that it'll all be like work, and then some personal stuff. So you want to make sure that wherever you end up working or wherever you are in that moment in time, that you feel satisfied with your decision and who you are or who you like choose to be every day at work. So why is corporate culture relevant? Because it's directly related to your job satisfaction. And that sense of job satisfaction then directly relates to how happy you report to be in your life in general. Second, it's about performance and productivity. So I'm sure you've heard like things like, or maybe even if you see yourselves in a class, like there are classes where you thrive and where you get like good grades, and where the culture in the class and the teacher and their ways like make you flourish and make you like want to give your best, right? And then there are other classes where you're like, oh my god, like let's just like end this, right? And not necessarily your talents or whether you're good at math or no, likely it's related to how the culture in the class and how the teacher that leads the class perceives like their expectations in terms of performance and productivity. Something that's also why is this relevant? It's employee retention. Every single day, like more and more, the times or like the periods of time that people spend in a specific job is getting shorter. Before, people would work at a place for 20, 25, 30, 40 years. Today, not so much. That average number today is from 1 year and a half to three, and it's getting shorter by the minute. So the way the culture and the way the dynamics, the conversations, and the routines that happen at work impact whether an employee decides to stay and thrive there or to like run away. And finally, culture can have a direct effect on your opportunities to grow, to learn, to develop, to build relationships, and all the other things that we're going to talk about today. So I want to share four actions that I would recommend you to take if you're trying to understand a corporate culture and to make a decision on whether you want to work for a company, not want to work for a company, and whether you're trying to decide if it's a good match for you or no. And it's assess corporate culture, adapt to the culture, then build relationships to grow within that culture, and leverage resources. So we'll go into each of that. First, to assess. So some of you mentioned that you're interviewing and you're looking for that job. So your first assignment is to research. And you'll notice that beyond the company website or the career website, which is like a very good research to understand the language that they use or the things that they value or the pictures that they share, you also want to do a little bit of stalking of their leaders, and not only in LinkedIn, but you want to go a little bit personal to understand, like, what does the founder love to do in their free time? What do they believe is important to them? What do the VPs or the chairs or the directors do in the community? How do they impact or influence the communities around them? And then there's always good resources in Glassdoor and other companies like Monster or like job boards that have employee reviews. So you want, just like you have the websites to like rate my professor, and you check like, do I want to take this class or do I not want to take this class? Same thing for companies. So like, do your research. Second, observe. If you're able to visit the premises, or if your interview is in person, you want to make sure you observe the environments. For example, I've been lucky enough to visit a couple of Google offices, and I had an interviewing process with Google many years ago, I think like 9 years ago, and it was successful until interview four. After interview four, it didn't go through, it didn't follow through. But until then, it was a very amazing process, and it was I learned a lot, right? So visiting their offices, there's like subtle things like, how do people say hi to each other in the corridors, or like at what times are they used to coming to have like the free snacks or like the free beers? How do they relate, or like what do their gestures look like when they're in meetings, things like that. And the communication patterns, and we'll talk about communications when we talk about behaviors. And then third and finally, so if I'm going to assess a corporate culture, I would say go and find current employees, ask them questions. You can be straightforward, and asking questions, like the right questions during your interview. So for example, what does a typical day look like for an employee in my role in this company? And they'll tell you. Hopefully they'll be honest, like, what do the like hours and agenda look like? Is it a mix of hybrid or in person? Is it busy? Is it solitary? Is it in teams? So there are a couple of questions, and I can share more about what questions to close your interview with to learn more about the corporate culture. I'm sharing two examples. The first one is Starbucks. Like, most companies have career sites, most companies have job sites, and the companies that take time to develop the employee brand is they're usually the companies that take time to be very intentional about their corporate culture. So you want to read, like, how do they talk about their employees? What do they say about them? What do they celebrate? Right? How do they recognize and reward their employees? So you want to make sure that you read through that. Another example, of course, Netflix has like an exemplary HR process, and their employer branding and their culture design is very intentional, like top in the world. But this is an example of, if you check out that site, like, you'll read about their values, what they love, what they appreciate, what they recognize, what they reward. So if you read those, like, if you read those and you do not feel in every single word like, oh my God, that's me, then it's not a good match. If you look at like their socials, and you look at their TikTok, the company's Instagram, and you look at like mentioned or tagged, so like employees or clients that tag and mention them, if you don't see yourself in whatever it is they're doing, then it's probably not for you. Second, so let's say you picked a company, you already said like, okay, let's do this, I got the job, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to do my best. You're going to have to adapt. And it's the same thing. Like for example, Switzerland. I loved visiting Switzerland. It was one of my favorite countries. It is one of my favorite countries in the world. I've only been to about 30, but I feel like that's a couple, right? But still I had to adapt. Like there were things in my behavior, in my conduct, and in my traditions, being from the Caribbean and living in US for like 12 years, that there were still behaviors and conducts and actions that felt like a shock, right? That culture shock. So you will have to adapt, okay? So first, you need to understand basic expectations. Is this a place where I can wear my beard like big, or is this a place where I'm gonna have to like where it's expected for me to shave my beard? Is this a place where I can wear my tattoos, or is this a place where I can't? Like personally, I have 6 tattoos, and my last client, I was sitting in a meeting. You can't see them unless like some of them you can't see, and I was sitting in a meeting with a client, and he's like, because I work HR, right? And he's like, we don't hire people with tattoos. They're all this and that. I'm like, well, see, there's a mismatch because I have 6. And I told him like right in front of everyone. And of course, if I were an employee there, like I wouldn't have said that because then I might lose my job. But then at the same time, as a consultant, I'm here thinking like, is this a match for me, right? As a client. So you want to make sure that the basic expectations for each other that they're met. Dress code, work hours, flexibility, expectations in your behavior, in your conduct, in your wording, everything. Second, you want to make sure that you align your values. And here's the thing, if I ask you, what is an exam like what is a sign of respect for you? What is respect? Could be one person just sharing like what respect means to them.
Maybe appreciating the work that you put on the table, or maybe not calling after hours. That's
Okay.
sign of respect. Yeah.
I love that example, not calling after hours. So for example, maybe for you that's respect, and in a specific culture that's respect. But for example, in my company, even though I try not to like text or bother people after hours, when someone in my team does it, I feel the responsibility of like not giving them work, or like not like not sustaining that. But then I feel like, wow, like the extra mile, so it's like respect to me. For example, some people think respect is calling me, in Hispanic countries we call each other like señora or doña, or and people call me that, and I'm like no, that's not respect. Like look at me, I'm kind of young, I still look young, don't call me doña. But when you talk to me, look at me in the eyes. So the thing with values is that they have different meaning for all of us. So if I say I value respect, that could mean something completely different in everyone's minds. Okay, I could say in my team we value respect, and someone can be like, I need to call her doña, and the other one is like, I can't call her after hours, and the other one is like, so you need to make sure that when you're in that process of adapting, that you ask specific questions and learn what conducts do these values translate to. Okay, like what does this mean? Because when we say, for example, oh, in our company we value, I don't know, teamwork, like what exactly are you expecting from me when you say teamwork? And that's very important. So ethical standards, oh, we value honesty. What does honesty mean? Like, do I tell you I was drinking last night and I didn't make it to work today? Or do you want me to tell you that I don't feel so well, so I might work from home today? Like, what does that mean? And also with the mission. So some companies are very intentional about sharing their purpose and aligning your purpose with theirs. And if that's something that wherever you work, like they don't do it, that's something I recommend you do it. Okay? If you're working at a place, even if it's volunteering, internship, whatever, make sure that you sit down and ask yourself, like, what's my purpose? Like, why am I here? Right? And it could be as big questions like, why am I here alive, or it could be like a very specific questions of like, why am I here in this job doing whatever it is I'm doing, and align that to the company. If your job is just to move boxes, like think to yourself, how is moving boxes in this job for whatever the end goal of the company is, how does this align to your purpose? And then finally, adjust. So you'll quickly learn, like when you visit a country, you learn how they say hi, how they say goodbye, like how they say thank you, or if they never say thank you, if they tip or if they don't tip. Same thing. When you're in a company, you want to adapt and adjust to communication styles. Do we are we loud? Are we open? Are we more like introverts? Everyone will be different, but there will be like a common agreement of how we behave and what we think is good. So you want to make sure that all of these are part of your adapting process. Third, I said build. So when I say build, does anyone recall building what? What are we building? I mentioned it in the beginning.
Relationships.
Yes, exactly, Ana Maria. Build relationships. Okay. And why are we building relationships? In a couple of slides and towards the end, like I'll share real life experiences and lessons that I believe are very powerful as just like common people examples that are um, things to keep in mind. But wherever you are and whatever your role is, building relationship is very important because in the end, and I know Hernan is like the number one promoter and ambassador for building relationships, because in the end, who we know and how we relate to them make a very big difference in our careers, in our lives. Who we pick as friends, who we pick as life partner, who we pick even if we just like we're going through a tough time or like a dark time or hard moment, even though they're all temporary, good and bad, who we have around us make a big difference. So first, remember to do your internal and external networking. Being part of a company, whether big or small, will allow you to relate to different people. And today, that person might be like, I don't know, the receptionist, and tomorrow, who knows? And today, you might be talking to your future boss, that's the client of the company, or to your future client because you end up becoming an entrepreneur. So you want to make sure that you networking, that people know you, that you care enough to know them and to learn from them. Second, mentorship. I also know that Hernan is like the king of mentoring, right? So you want to make sure that in every job you identify people who have a life trajectory, whether it's in the work or whether it's technical or whether it's social or whether it's personal, however you relate to them. You want to make sure that you find a mentor, that you agree to learn from them, that you agree with them, and that they agree to teach you and to guide you and to support you. And then always, I feel, regardless of your age, always try and be a mentor to someone else. There's always someone that's more like or younger or came after you or they're new, and you never know who you could be inspiring and supporting. And then finally, collaborate. Participate with other departments, participate in volunteer work, be part of team projects, even if it's, oh yeah, can you take notes? Yeah, I can. And then take the best notes you've ever taken. Then leverage resources. So you're going to assess, adapt, you're going to build and leverage. And what does this mean? Small or big companies have resources, and when I say resources, it's not just money. It's like other companies that they relate to, is the community they relate to. Sometimes they relate to local governments, schools, etc., other organizations. So you want to make sure that you leverage the resources that they have available for you. um, for example, and most around the topic of learning, developing your talents, developing your skills. Ask about the opportunities to learn and to grow. Ask about opportunities to volunteer. Ask about educational reimbursements. Most companies today because of like the focus of employee well-being, and it's not just all about salary. Most companies, like, they won't pay you necessarily as well, or like give you a big raise every year, but they'll probably, or most likely, like reimburse educational money. Be on the lookout for internal job postings, opportunities for growth within the company. And I don't like to call people like resources, but at some point, the people around you, whether it's like vertically or horizontal, those that you relate to, they become amazing resources to you in different moments of your life. Finally, like, wherever you end up for however long, make sure that you are continuously learning, whether it's technical skills and you decide to go through accounting or finance, but then you realize that your thing is marketing or the arts or whatever, wherever you are, the technical skills that you learn, you carry them with you wherever you go. So make sure you develop them. Your soft skills, they'll also go with you wherever you go. The more soft skills we're able to develop, the more advantage we'll have over AI and like other alternatives to talent. Taking certifications, taking advantage of courses that the company offers. Most companies now have like e-learning programs, corporate universities, so take advantage of those. And I know like you guys are the king of these like industry trends, social media, technology, all that. For your career advancement, regardless again of the company that you're in, and even if you don't feel like you're a good fit in the company where you are when you're right now or in a specific moment, remember to always have your goals, like clear goals. Your career goals are yours, and no one is going to come and be like, like, hey, Marisabel, let's sit down and let's talk about your future. Or like, hey, Marisabel, I know you're doing an amazing job, but where would you see yourself in 10 years? Like, most likely, no one's going to come and ask. So you want to make sure you sit down with yourself and you ask yourself, okay, today I'm here and I'm going to do my best and I'm going to love it and I'm going to learn and I'm going to build from here. But where do I see myself in 20 years? Where do I see myself in 15, 10, 5, 1? So what do I need to do now? What do I need to learn now? Who do I need to meet or discover? Like, what do I experience now to go there? And keep your goals clear to yourself, even if they change tomorrow, because it might. Okay, they can change tomorrow. It doesn't matter if they change tomorrow. Just make sure that you have them today. Second, ask for feedback. You want to make sure that communication channels are open and that you ask for feedback. I think, according to science or like research, your generation is very open to feedback, more than even mine, I think. But it's very important that you ask for it, because you can't read people's minds. And sometimes you might think like you're doing an awesome job or like you did your best, but the other is unsatisfied or doesn't think the same. So you want to make sure that you ask for it. And accountability and ownership. I put taking initiative, but you want to take ownership of your career advancement. So you want to make sure that if you discover like what social purpose or like social good or community or how you want to leave like a trail of your life or like a of your work, that you find places and things to volunteer, projects that you can add value to. How can you collaborate to those around you? How can you support the organizations or your friends or your colleagues or your own mission? And how often do you propose new ideas? How much value can you add to whatever team you're on? And in my last job on campus, and I'll tell that story in a little bit, well, in a couple of minutes. I was the first and the only, until now, they haven't hired anyone else after me, graduate research assistant in the office of the president for my university. And because I was always like proposing ideas, proposing solutions, and like adding, trying to add value. Also, I was the only Latina on the whole floor. All the VPs were white, everyone was white, and it was super awkward. So I'm like, like, I want to make a difference. I want to like leave a mark and like, like do my best. So they would continue to add me to projects. They would continue to add me to committees. And it was a weird spot where they're like, well, you're a student, but then you're also like so professional. So like we're not sure like what you look like. So you want to make sure that you propose new ideas and add values wherever you sit. Like make sure the table and the conversation is different because you sat there. Finally, like what challenges you're going to face, because no one escapes challenges. um, there might be misalignments. There's going to be difficult conversations that will have to be had. There's going to be office politics that maybe even if I am a good fit for the office, there's some politics that I don't like or that I don't support. And then I just need to ask, is it something that just is uncomfortable for me or bothers me, or is it something that I cannot live with or I cannot be a part of? That's important for you to ask yourself. And then always just um to alleviate that or to work with that, like have open communications and seek support. Like make sure to ask the right questions. For example, I remember asking my boss there, that campus job, like I used to ask them like, so like why are Americans so weird about like talking politics? Because no one asks you like what side are you on. No one talks about that. And in my country it's like very clear, like, oh, I'm this and you're this, and like, so ask questions. So three very short, like brief life examples that I always love to share. In assessing, in 2010, I think I was a sophomore in college, and I was interviewing for a job in career services. Um, I ended up getting the job. I was like a career coach for like peer coach and all this. There I discovered my like passion for HR and all that. But I attended that interview like 6 days after a major knee surgery, and I went to the interview with um like a needle going through my thigh that went up to like a sedative, and I had to put the feet on my table because I couldn't have it down because then the liquid wouldn't go into my body or something like that. And at the same time that it was very weird, and I'm like, I'm not gonna miss my interview because I want this job and all of this. At the same time, I was like, what are they gonna think? Because this is like a little bit crazy, and I'm like a little bit sedated, and I am still like going through the surgery, you know. But they were so caring, and the way they reacted and the way they supported me and the way they tried to make me feel comfortable knowing how uncomfortable it already was, like I knew right there that it would be a good fit. And I worked there for a couple of years and it was amazing. So from the first interaction, like phone interview, you're assessing them as well. Second, adapting. So I remember 2013, I had a job. I was a head of employment in the government in here in Dominican Republic, and I had a boss, and she had other priorities. Like she wanted to travel, she wanted to do things. Like she wasn't all there. And some people would give me the advice like, that's not your job. Like that's your boss's job, or like you shouldn't be doing that. Like why are you caring so much and all this? And I will never forget, we had like an ISO 9001 ISO certification thing, and she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to make it, like you can handle it, go ahead. And there I was, like I don't know how old I was like 11 years ago, so probably 20 something, and like young. And the consultants were like, why is there like a kid leading this, like what like where's your boss? And the only thing I know, besides like we were successful with the certification, is that like 2 years later I charged about $35,000 for a service to do that, exactly what I did at that job that wasn't my job and that was supposed to be my boss's job. So to me that was like, see, that's why we can't have like mentality of like, that's not my job, that's my boss's job, like she should be doing that, not me. I was like all about like, I got this, like I'm gonna learn and I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna, like make profit from it sometime in the future. So the third example is about that attitude. In 2000, after career services in from 2013 or like 2012, and then back in 2014, 15, I was back in Michigan. And when I worked there in like my other campus jobs, I was very close to another Dominican. He worked at the office of the president of that time. And long story short, I organized an event that he didn't want to organize. My boss was like, yeah, you do it, all this. And then the president at that time and his assistant attended the event, and they were like, oh, we congratulate you. We heard like you pulled this off, blah, blah. Fast forward to 2018, I'm trying to find a scholarship to go back to school and study my PhD. And guess who is now the chief of staff for the whole university? The person who was the assistant to the president in that time. And when I interviewed by phone, and he asked, so I have a question. Are you the student that worked blah 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 that organized that event, blah blah blah? And I said, yes, that's me. I was so excited that he remembered. And he's like, I don't even have to interview you. Like, you got it. I remember your work ethic, and I remember and all this. And I'm like, okay, God, thank you, because it was just like too exciting. But at the same time, it's like, no, back then I worked for this. So in 2018, I was hired as the first grad assistant for the president. I had an amazing job. Like, I worked directly with the board of trustees. I worked directly with the chief of staff, reported to the president. We did amazing projects. I was there until last year when I graduated for my PhD. Then, like, simultaneously lead the company here and all that. So it's kind of crazy. But at the same time, it's like I would have never known that back in 2012, 2013, 14, 15, when I was working, I was actually working for this opportunity today, and it paid for my whole PhD career, like 5 years. I don't know, however, hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever for the 5 years. So it's just like you never know today what your okay, I forgot my English, sembrando, what you're okay. You never know. Like today, you never know what you're building for yourself in the future. Okay, like that seed that you're planting today, that's the word. You're planting today seeds of work, of love, appreciation, example, inspiration, motivation, dedication, effort. Yeah, cultivating. Thank you. And you never know how that will flourish in the future. So, something that I also want you to keep in mind is that remain true to yourself. But what that really means is like, make sure you ask yourself who you are and what you love and where you're going, and then stay true to that, because as this amazing psychologist said, the world will ask you who you are and where you're going and what you want to do, and if you don't know, it will tell you. So make sure that you answer this question for yourself, and then thank you. So I hope you enjoyed it, and please ask any questions. I think I stayed in time. Any comments, questions? If
I
you,
have one question.
yeah.
So, what if at first you like start liking the culture, but then as time passes, you start disliking the culture, like because people change positions and new people come in, and I think that could happen because it
Hmm.
has happened to me in the past. So, how could you
Hmm.
deal with that, like going forward?
Hmm. So I would say ask yourself if it's the things happening outside of you that you don't like anymore, or is it things that you're discovering from yourself that make you not like whatever is happening outside? Because that's two different, like two completely different worlds. So you will be in places where your boss changes, or like new people come in and things change, like the office politics change, and then your ability to adapt will remain your own. And it's actually one of the best skills you can have, because people will come and go, and like jobs will come and go, but how you adapt to whatever situation will always, be part of you. But sometimes, whether things change or not is not as important as how we feel about them, or like how we relate to them. So for example, sometimes the culture doesn't change that much, but some things that are very important to us are different. My boss in that time, the most amazing guy in the world, he gets like a new boss, and then that affects him, and then he's a different person, and then now I'm all stressed, like I don't like this guy anymore. So it's like I should ask myself, like, what is it about this change that I don't feel comfortable with? How can I deal with it better? Or like, what questions can I ask myself or the other people involved to better understand and relate to them? And then eventually, if it's something that, like, for example, when companies get a new CEO and they go through important transformations, and like cultures and subcultures change, like either drastically or like in an important way, then it's time to ask yourself, do I still match with this? Like, is this still a good fit for me? And if it's not, still my recommendation will always be like, when people come with, because I do career coaching, like when people come and they say like, I hate my job, I want to leave, blah blah, I'm always like, you know what, you'll be ready to leave when you actually love the job and you're are you've outgrown it, and then you're ready to leave. But if you're escaping something, it'll follow you. And like whatever it is that's happening now and you don't like, and you're trying to run away from it, you'll probably find the same thing in the next one, and then you'll become one of those people like, oh, fifth job, hate everyone, like nothing fits, I don't like it. Because there will always be things that we don't like. And even like, imagine our family, the people we love the most, like that's complicated. So like, imagine at work where it's people like, they're not even our blood. So I would say just keep in mind, like, is it outside or is it inside? And then how do I choose to deal with it? And always find help. Like, there's always support, either mentors, friends, colleagues, family. But always make sure, I would recommend to always take advice from people who you believe are doing it well in that area that you're asking. Okay. I have a friend, I remember like 10 years ago, he wanted to launch his own company. He asked his three aunts and he decided not to do it. And I'm like, does any of your aunts have a company? No. So what will they know about that? Like, don't ask them if you should launch your company. You go find a successful entrepreneur and ask them. And he's like, oh, that makes sense. So you want to make sure you find support, but also like be smart about who you ask. Thank you for that question,
Thanks.
Nicolette.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
I Right now I'm really interested in sales and operations and HR, and I'm investigating on both industries. And I have a question while studying in college. Was there anything that really stood out to you that made you like decide on a concentration on like what you would like to do as a career?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell you good news and bad news. The good news is that whatever you decide to try and experiment and experience will take you closer to feeling certain about that decision. The bad news is that even if you feel at one moment that that's your life purpose and that you were born for that, it might still change at some point. I decided I was born for HR because I sat in a class. I studied economics, and my third year, I sat in like an elective. It was HR, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I've wasted 3 years of my life studying economics. Like, this is what I love. It's people. And then today, I like HR. Like HR, it's my work, it's my job. Like I love it. I changed so many people's lives. But when I was a kid, I dreamed about like what I wanted to do was be a teacher. And what I love is teaching. So at some point in life, like those are coming together. Like I teach corporate. So like I teach executives and directives and even like first lines, whatever. But the only way that you'll know is trying. The only way that you'll know if you love that topic is sitting in the class. The only way that you know if you like the job in itself is doing the activities. And then here's the other catch. Even if you are in the career that you love or the work, like the best job in your life, there will be things that you don't like. And there will be things that you hate doing, or like some interactions that you don't want to deal with them at all. Nothing will be ever like 100% like perfect, amazing, and like this is it. Even the same thing like with personal relationships. You have friends that you love to death, but then they're people and they're human and they're not perfect. So it's the same thing with that. I'd say if you sit in those classes that you feel like the content, you just want to learn more and you feel so curious about that, like as a concentration, that's a good path and a good way, I say, to make a decision. Make sure to also research and like learn, discover, or experiment what the career for that concentration looks like, because sometimes, for example, I am crazy about numbers, and like I really enjoyed my degree in economics. Like I actually enjoyed it. For at some point, like I thought, I was like, oh my god, microeconomics is like, it's like confetti in my life. But the life of the economist, like, not for me, you know what I mean? So you want to make sure that you discover, learn, ask, experiment, and then in the end, the path that you decide to take will be perfect. And then when you look back, at some point it'll make sense, like, oh my god, yeah, of course, this is why I at some point I worked in blah blah blah, and here I am today, 20 years later, and it'll make sense. So don't stress out so much about making the right decision. Stress out about feeling at peace with whatever decision you make at the moment. Thank you for that question. You're welcome. Any other question or comment?
Hi, Ivana.
Yes, hi.
It's very nice to meet you.
You too.
I do have a question. So, I would like your advice on what do you think, or how is the best way in to approach a higher up, a boss, on how to give feedback or request feedback, even if, like, for example, I I have been working at my current job for the past 2 years, and I've never had a yearly review. Back in January, I requested one, and I was given a lot of loops, or kind of excuses in a sense, as to it's not necessary at the moment, or there's a lot of workload. So a few months passed by, and I requested it again to see if maybe it's a good time. And once again, it's not really a priority in their eyes, but it's a huge priority for me. So, and as well as that, the wants in growing my career and seeing me like take those few steps. So I just wonder, like, what your opinion is on how I should approach that, and yeah.
Thank you, Patricia. I love that question. So sometimes we don't realize that the process of annual reviews, performance reviews, or even like formal feedback can be very stressful on companies and or leaders. And even some leaders, even if they, like how you mentioned, like higher up, sometimes even they don't know how to, like, how do I do this? And sometimes HR teams are not very proactive in like implementing that, or like creating the policies and procedures so that the leaders feel comfortable giving feedback. So sometimes, like, it might seem like, why are you avoiding me, like I need feedback. And sometimes it's then like, oh my god, how do I do this? So I wanted to give you that comment. But then I believe in consistent and constant small feedback, and that builds up. So I would recommend you, whoever supervises your work, whoever you report to, when they give you a job, like even if it's like, light up this candle, I light the candle, I always like to ask, like, would you have done it differently, or like, how can I do it better next time? Or if they, okay, thank you for the candle, and then next work, like, fill the glass, I would be like, so how do you think the glass would look like if it were successfully filled? And they would be like, oh, blah blah blah, awesome. So I am very like, I would be very proactive on asking feedback. And maybe if they feel like they're reluctant to sit down and have like a formal, like, annual review, performance review, and all that, just make sure that you grab like small opportunities to have, because feedback is just like comments on how to do better, right? Hopefully. Or mistakes, right? Or like, this could be better, this is an opportunity, this sucks, whatever it is. So just make sure that you ask questions. And the smaller the question and the closer to the person that who you report to, the better. Then also, if at some point you interact with other teams or you interact with other supervisors or other higher ups, um, make sure that whatever it is, like the job at hand or the job that you have to do, ask like, is there anything that you would have done different? Do you have any recommendations for me? Or before or after the job even, how can I do it better next time? Those are like small, like even sound silly questions that can get people feeling comfortable to giving feedback. I hope that helps.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. You're welcome, Patricia. Carla, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, well, my question is kind of similar to what Patricia asked. Um,
Hmm.
it's like how you go around to. So my boss, I have two bosses. One is a shareholder of the company, and the other one is my direct manager. She pretty much is a CPA who I work with,
Hmm.
and she is open for me to like grow in any way I want. She always teaches me whatever she has available, like any information she has, she will teach me, and she will encourage me pretty much to learn more. However,
Hmm.
she doesn't really she doesn't really have the power to send me, like go do some audits so you can get audit experience, or like go do some, I don't know, go travel to
Hmm.
Houston to see the real estate companies, like the things that I really am interested in. She's not able to send me to
Hmm.
because she's very restricted. She only
Hmm.
does like taxes and some audits. And then when it
Hmm.
comes to my boss, like the bigger boss, was the shareholder, he kind of like I don't think he really likes the idea that I'm a finance major. He prefers, like, every time he talks to me, it's like, oh, finance can get you so much, but if you don't really study accounting, I don't see the point of you going anywhere to learn more. So it's kind of hard for me because I do want to learn before pursuing more accounting, because I really don't know if that's something I want to do and like how you go about that.
Well, um, so on the first part of your question, talking about your direct supervisor, I would recommend looking, let's say like future forward. That person is the one that has the most weight on giving you recommendations, on giving you like job references. So even if today it doesn't seem like they have any power to like send you to anything or like you can take advantage of, tomorrow when you're applying to whatever job and they ask her, because she's your direct supervisor, she'll have the most weight talking about your actual work. So still, I would value that relationship in terms of, this is the person that's going to speak about my work to whomever is in the future. And then to that second part, like, what can I say? Like, I'm sorry that guy or girl or whomever thinks like that, like, that sucks. But I would say keep an open mind and like let them know that still you're curious. So for example, maybe if you ask me and I was there where he's like, well, like studying accounting, blah blah, and then there's also like the ego thing, like he's an accountant, so like whoever's not an accountant, like they're less or whatever. I still I'd still be open about my curiosity and about my eagerness to learn. And for example, like an answer would be like, well, like I'm done with finance in 2 years, so who knows if I'll go after, like if I'll study accounting after that, because you don't know. So I would still let them know, because then like you have to really like suck as a person, like not to want to teach others, so like not to want to support others when they're curious or like they want to learn and all this. So um I would not rely or like um give the key to my own learning to that person, even though that's the one with the power to do the magic. Like I wouldn't. And second, I would still keep an open, positive, and like determined and proactive communication in terms of how curious you are, how much you want to learn, and what you're willing to do to learn. And I hope that helps.
Yeah, I did. You actually remind me. Yeah, I did graduate from finance on January.
Wow.
I mean, December last year, and on January he was the one who gave me the promotion to the full time, and that's why like I got really excited because he was like telling me, oh yeah, we can work things out, because I told him like I just graduated from finance. I would love to explore my degree, but however, I love accounting. I love what I'm doing right now, and I want to explore it a little bit more. And he was, at that point, he was excited. But as the months went by, I noticed that it wasn't really that much interest. And then he gave me an example of one of the seniors there, one of the senior auditors. She's a finance background, and pretty much that's the most she could got that she could got in the company. Like and anything beyond she wasn't allowed to.
Okay. Well, and here's the thing. Maybe in that company, you can already start to see the ceiling. You know what I mean? Like a couple years there, and there's your ceiling. Or you can also do some research and like look at some people who are fine, if like in finance, but have succeeded in accounting firms. And because when you think about the big four, like Ernst
Yeah.
and Young or like the other ones, you still have like some amazing people at the top who are not necessarily accounting guys or girls. You know what I mean? So, like, try to always express and like demonstrate through your actions that you're willing to learn, that you're eager to learn, and that you're willing to try things that like maybe you didn't learn at school but you can learn in practice. And then also know, but don't dismay, but know that if that's the ceiling for your journey there, then that's fine. Even though like stay like big and determined and your best self until the last day and one more day. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to walk out and be like, you always want to
Yeah.
make sure that you leave through the big door, how you would say in Spanish.
Yeah, no. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm going to share in the comments. I think it was the last slide, but I'm going to share my Instagram and my email in case anyone has any questions at all. Hernan knows
Yeah.
as a friend, as a
Yeah,
college,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
I'm here.
I was,
So
I was.
I love to support you guys in anything and everything. So make sure to reach out if you're interviewing or if you're applying or if you have a specific or a broad question. Know that I'm here for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed today's talk. I know it was short and sweet, but there's a lot where that came from. So take advantage of that.
So I already mentioned that Leah. I already mentioned that Ivana is Bianca's sister. So I hope that you guys can meet in the Dominican Republic. But I know Ivana travels often. So if not, she'll meet with you guys at some point. But
Yes.
Ivana.
Now I'm not allowed to travel. Look.
I know, but it'll happen soon. Don't worry. And I'll probably see you before that over there. So no worries. Guys, Ivana has poured her heart out for this presentation. So let's give her a big round of applause, please. And I want to thank you for taking the time to share your experiences beyond your presentation, because it's through your experiences that people can connect as well. I know you're not going anywhere. The most important thing is, guys, these lessons that you're learning today, make sure that you talk to the people that you're connected with, your mentors. Have a dialogue. So your homework is obviously make sure that uh, you understand the culture. Are you there?
We're here.
Oh, sorry. A call came in at the same time. So I was gonna say, whatever you learned today, make sure that you discuss it with your mentors as well. So do not. It doesn't stop here. And before I forget, remember that next week we're going to talk to Raul Duarte, who's the CEO of a major recruiting firm in Miami. He also worked for a major firm in the U.S. and he just established his firm. And we're gonna talk about the job market and what's available for you guys as starting and starting either an entrepreneur or as a corporate in your career. How to start looking for the right opportunity for you. Okay, so let's make sure that everybody's here next week. I wish you the very best, Ivana. I love you again. Thank you for taking the time for this. And guys, if you have any other questions, reach out. Make sure that you share your comments. I'm gonna share Ivana your information again after this
Yes.
call. And anybody else before we leave?
Thank you, Hernan. Thank you so much. Love you too, and I appreciate everything that you
Thank
do
you,
and
thank
admire
you.
it so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
So,
Good luck with everything. Bye.
Excellent. And guys, if we'll chat later on individually if you have any questions. By the way, I need to talk to Nicholas. I need to talk to you. I changed your mentor. It's no longer Brenda. It's gonna be Shalako Weiner, who's the chief revenue officer for Gova Capital. He knows your dad and your uncle as well because he's mentors at Apprentice. So it's gonna be fun. Marisabel, I know I'm gonna see you in 2 days as you're running our event. Slohan, I need to make sure that you connect with Abimael, who's our top leader in Puerto Rico. He runs Challenger Brass and Copper. I know you talked to me about supply chain. Who else do I owe you? Let me see. Natalie, I haven't forgotten you. I know we have Mari Carmen and Jahairi. Who else? Leah, you have to be persistent with Ignacio. Ignacio is my best friend, so I'm gonna make sure that you guys connect this week. Who else? Patricia, let's talk about what you mentioned. I'm gonna give you some pointers, okay, on how to deal with that situation. You
Okay,
gotta.
thank you.
I want to understand what your company does and who the people are, so I can give you some practical advice. But I think like Ivana said, you have to be proactive and not wait for them to give you opportunities. Maybe you ask for additional training. If they're not paying you more, they're going to give you more training. You know, these are things, strategies to keep your career momentum. You have to continue building your career momentum. You cannot let your bosses manage your career. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
learned. Okay, you are in charge of your career, right? Do not think because you have a position now that you cannot be better in 6 months. Marisabel and I talk a lot, right, about her opportunities. I want you guys to look at the world as your playground now and do not shortchange yourself. You are here for a reason. By the way, I could have said no to all of you to be here, but you're here because you have what it takes. You have a good heart, you have a good attitude, right? And you're building relationships, which is what's gonna leave you, what's gonna last for a lifetime. Okay, the relationships that you build today are the ones that are gonna be with people that care about you as a person, right? They might not be your bosses necessarily, although I can hire many of you, but they might. These are gonna be lasting relationships that you want all the CEOs to be your friends, so that like Ivana. By the way, Ivana calls me with ideas and for advice as well, right? And she's in her 30s, so it doesn't stop. I talk to my mentors who are in their 60s every day. Okay, so it doesn't stop. Um, I passed the time. It's 8:06. I promise to end at 8 o'clock. But if there's any more questions, just feel free to reach out to me or Ivana, and I'll put your contact, Ivana, if you don't mind in their chat as well. Anybody else before we leave? ¿Quién más? Bueno, está bien. Me voy. Guys, have a good week. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye, thank
Bye,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.